The temperature at this spaceport was sweltering. I didn't know how the ships weren't melting where they stood. Maybe the captain would want to take us up for a jaunt through the chilly upper atmosphere before heading out to the vacuum of space. Some alpine heights sounded pretty nice right now. I knew I wouldn't be able to stick my head out a window on a spaceship in flight, but I could imagine, and that was keeping me going. At least we had shade. It was from a singularly huge leaf on an alien plant, but it would do. I stood squarely in that shade next to Moore, who seemed pretty ambivalent about the sauna on max weather conditions. He probably would have cared more if it was a dry heat, since he would have had to worry about his tentacles drying out. Paint, on the other hand, was actually enjoying this, because, of course she was. She stood in the full sun, soaking up the heat on her orange scales, occasionally sighing happily. "This is so nice," she said. "The ship's warm enough to get by, but I've missed proper heat." Moore waved a blue-black tentacle between the sun and the shade. "I like the moisture content of the air," he admitted. "It is pretty nice." I stood there dripping sweat and flapping my shirt for some hint of a breeze. "For you," I said. Paint cocked her head up at me. "Where's your—" "Right. I forgot humans did that. It looks unpleasant. Doesn't it get your clothes wet?" I nodded, still flapping. Yes and yes. "But it cools you down, right?" "Only if there's a breeze," I told her. "Otherwise it's just an added layer of discomfort." "Oh, that's what you're doing," Paint said, pointing a claw. "I wondered." Moore pointed a tentacle in a different direction. "You'll be back in ship temperature soon enough. That has to be the customer." I followed where he was pointing to see a strong arm, slightly smaller than he was, coloured in a lighter shade of blue that showed the dust that hadn't been fastidiously wiped off. The most notable difference, though, was that while Moore would have been carrying the brown package, this person was dragging it. It didn't even look that heavy. I glanced at Moore. Even from above I could see his scowl. He didn't say anything, though. It wouldn't do to badmouth a customer, even such a poor representative of the species as this. Paint whispered, "I thought there were supposed to be more packages than one." Moore said, "We'll ask." I wiped my face, and hoped we wouldn't have to wait for somebody else to bring the rest. If we did, I was going to volunteer to take the first box back to the ship and stay there. When the other strong-arm got close enough, Moore moved forward with an official greeting and a thankfully temperature-resistant datapad. He handled the conversation. That was great, since I didn't have to leave the shade of that one glorious leaf. Paint stepped up to accept the box, while Moore was handling data entry and discussing the missing packages. Yes, there was supposed to be more. No, the customer didn't have them ready after all. Was there any chance of a discount for delivery, since we wouldn't be dealing with as many? Nope, we were still making the same trip. Moore was firm on that. Thankfully, for all our sakes, the customer didn't feel like arguing about it. Soon enough, those dusty blue tentacles were waving goodbye and plopping along back down the walkway. Moore turned off the datapad. Paint brushed dirt off the box. I rubbed away sweat dripping down my neck and pointed toward the ship. "Shall we?" They both fell in behind me, and I led the way, grateful for any kind of breeze. It was a pity they weren't as long-legged as I was, but even this faint bit of air was an improvement. Moore grumbled something that sounded like, "Disgrace to the species." I didn't comment, busy breathing. Paint turned the box over with quiet taps of her claws. "Look, the tape isn't even sealed down all the way. They're lucky we aren't going to toss this somewhere it'll get caught and pulled loose." "Typical," said Moore. I looked back at it. The thing was a surprisingly Earth-like cardboard-style box, and the packing tape was the paper stuff. I asked, "Is that the kind that's activated by water?" Paint tried to press it down and failed. "I think so. It's not sticky." I squinted at the distance still to walk, then stopped and held out my hands. "Gimme, I'll fix it." Paint lifted it towards me. "How? I wouldn't recommend licking." I grabbed the box, wiped my sweaty forearm on the tape, then smoothed it down with a damp palm. Perfect. Done, I said, handing it back. If you don't mind, I need a drink of water. See you back on board. I took long-legged strides toward the ship. Behind me, Moore was laughing. I heard Paint mutter, "Do you think that's sanitary?" Moore said, "I don't think this customer would care in the slightest, and that's a risk they run in being that late than giving a package to a species that gets damp in the heat."